Water, moonlight, danger, dream. Bronze urn angled on a tree root, one slash of light, then gone. A red moon seen through clouds or almost seen. Treasure found, but lost, flirting between the worlds of lost and found.
I'd like to offer a few words on our topic, self-portrait in the age of instant communication. Never before have we had access to mechanisms that can capture and disseminate a portrait as effectively as we can today. Thus one hears people talking about selfies and self-portraits as if they were more or less the same thing, with the only differentiator being the mechanisms used to create them.
Conflict between these two positions, whether there is a self or there isn't a self, is already present in German idealism, in the sense in which a transcendental self only becomes a real self in the encounter with the other.
The portrait has a certain symbolic value. In its simplest form, it symbolizes a person, acts as an aide-memoire for their particular facial topography.
We've been talking about the self, some of us about self-expression, others on the self-portrait, and a third group on self-portrait in the age of instant communication. And actually, I think the fact that people responded to different evolutions of the title was very useful, because it gave us a wider spread. General level, very, very high. I found particularly today Jim Johnson's presentation on the Venetian masks and then on masks in general, one of the most exciting talks I've heard in a very, very long time.
But the use of masks removes the need for respect. It does not disguise identities, but it excuses non-nobles from acknowledging nobles as such.
The portrait is typically about a person, entre comillas, and all those mental properties that we tend to ascribe the physical structure.
Dürer would be disqualified from being a celebrity in our modern age for three reasons. One is because he was immensely talented. Two was because he works fantastically hard on developing his talents. And three, because he has something to say.
As high mimetic beings with always active mirror neurons, people adopt the strongest and most suggestive forms of expression. Really, there might be nothing else in the present culture which modifies as effectively as selfies and emoticons the codification of facial features and gestures.
Poses a sort of dilemma or a problem for that view, which is that with new technologies, in a sense, we have an ever greater chance of communicating and getting in touch with each other. And so on the relationship view of the self, this should lead to a greater sense of the self.
I, as a subject, have knowledge of my world, but I don't find myself in that world. I am, as it were, the thing at the edge of it, the perspective from which that world is constructed. Therefore, from the point of view of my understanding of reality, the I, the self, is transcendental. And he made a great point of amplifying this concept of the transcendental self.
I'm fascinated by what you say about instant communication and whether indeed we can call this communication at all if there is an objectification of the self through instant communication. Something that Jim and John Burnside were talking about was the commodification of the self through projecting it in a selfie or through putting it online in any way.
Anyway, what's wrong with the selfie, for a start? The veteran fashion collector Iris Apfel put it bluntly, it's taking narcissism to a ridiculous degree. But that might give rise to another question, what's wrong with narcissism? Derrida pointed out that we're all narcissistic to some degree. We're unavoidably caught up with ourselves, fascinated with ourselves. But Perhaps in this case, the narcissism of the selfie could be defined as being caught up with ourselves and staring at ourselves without seeing ourselves at all.
The idea of having poets, especially, I thought superb. Ruth Padel, John Burnside were a fantastically contrasting and delightful pair, because they're both poets of ideas as well as poets of the senses. And I noticed that both of them rely on a degree of speculation about who we are, what life is like, at a sensual level with metaphysical contemplation.
It's the whole spirit of the enterprise of the Alpine Fellowship and of the Fondazione Cini here is to build on the fantastic art and architecture and thought of the poetry and music of the past. And this is the new thought, the new music, and the new, the new faces, the new ideas. And it was all around one particular idea of the selfie, what could be more, in a way, more banal and more modern and up to date. But at the same time, it is going right back to self-portraiture, self-expression in the past. And in my discipline, poetry, I think of all the poetry going back to Dante and before to Homer. And then here we are doing new poetry in the middle of this amazing colonnaded setting.
The painted self-portrait has become an exercise in pointlessness. But that is what makes it an expression of freedom. Unlike the selfie, its lack of utility and its cumbersome process maintain its irrelevance, force the painter to confront himself, herself, over time. And its inability to compete with technology preserves it as a potential path to self-awareness, a chance to rage against our biology.
People are very intellectually generous with each other. This is not like an academic conference where there are reputations to be upheld or ruined. There's a general sense that if people are comfortable in their skin, they already know what they think, they're open. Dinner in the Palazzo came as a complete shock to me. I had no idea. I thought we were just going across the water to some restaurant. I was faintly irritated by the whole black tie business. But once we were in the palace, I saw why we were, and that was really like a Christmas present. I had no idea. So the fact that you were fairly mean with the information actually bore fruit there.